Welcome back to the channel, guys. I've got another one about football. I'm going to have to change the name of this channel if I keep talking about football, but I am going to come back onto boxing. I am linking this to boxing because I think football could learn a few lessons from the culture that we have in our great sport of boxing, but I'm going to come back onto that. But the bottom line is we lost. I'm going to say we, England, lost against Argentina. And Argentina deserved to win. And the first thing that we see in football is let's blame the manager. And, you know, in boxing, and this is where I'm drawing the parallel, you know, you lose and you congratulate the winner. You know, you go and you pay your respects to the corner, and you take it like a man. Whereas in football, it's a blame game. And right now, Thomas Tuchel is very much the target. And in this episode of Kirk's Corner, what I want to talk about is why that's wrong, and why England were most likely well on their way to losing in any case, and why we need some of that boxing mentality in football. So I'm not saying that the manager is perfect. I'm not saying that Tuchel was perfect, but I'm completely rejecting the idea that he's the villain in all of this. So let's just have a little recap on what transpired in the game. So if you watched it, you know what went on. For those that didn't, it was a very tight, nervy start, lots of fouling, very, very bitty, as the battle lines were drawn by both teams. Anthony Gordon, who's been fantastic for England throughout the tournament, he really has been amazing down that left-hand side. He puts England 1 goal up shortly into the second half. And really, from that point, England just completely changed. They went completely passive, and they were getting pushed deeper and deeper into their half. And Argentina just really began to grow into the game. And England actually saw very little of the game. They had very little possession of the ball after Gordon scored that goal. There was one stat that said that England, up until the point that Argentina scored the winning goal, they'd had 12% possession. So, you know, even before there was any substitutions, and we're going to come on to Thomas Tuchel in a second, we were already under the cosh. And Argentina were rising, and were really on the ascendancy from the moment we scored. Okay, that was really the point there where you just saw a complete change in the way that the England team played their game. But let's just look at Argentina, and you know, they have a habit of finishing strong. You look at this tournament, and Argentina have been scoring a lot of their knockout goals 79 minutes or after. They've already had games where they've come back from behind in the last 10 or 15 minutes. They're built to finish fights in the championship rounds, as we would call them in boxing. It's part of their makeup. This is where they just come into their own. It's almost like the opposing team are a bit gassed out, and that's when Argentina really go for it in a big way. So when we scored and essentially sat back, we weren't just protecting a lead against any team, we were actually inviting pressure from a side that actually lives for those moments. So let's just have a look at the timeline here now. So minute 72, that's when we saw the first big change. Gordon, who was our goal scorer, came off. Ezri Konsa came on. And that's when England moved to a back five. And, you know, to me, that's Tuchel saying, you know, we can't keep soaking up this pressure. We're being overrun. Let's add an extra defender. Let's close the gaps and deal with those crosses that were just being peppered in. It was almost like watching a training session on the training ground, where you're just having a session on how to defend. I mean, we just could not break out. Minute 82, we saw a double change. We saw Reece James and Declan Rice come off, and we saw Dan Burn and Nico O'Reilly come on. So essentially, England ended up with 6 defensive-minded players, effectively a 5-4-1 formation, and they were just camped deep into the goal area, essentially. The goals came from Enzo Fernandez. He equalised. What a great goal that was. I mean, that was just an amazing goal, let's be honest. But that was after sustained pressure. I mean, the pressure was just, you knew it was coming. And then the winner came from Lautaro Martinez. He scored in stoppage time. And again, it was another amazing goal. You know, they just missed, they hit the post, and it comes back out, it goes back in again. And it was a tremendous header by Lautaro Martinez. I mean, you have to give credit here. Now, if we look at what was happening, it was, and again, going back to a fighting analogy, a boxing analogy, it's essentially the corner making a call that you're under fire, your guy's taking all the shots, and you decide, do we trade, do we tighten up, and do we try and survive the round? And that was where Tuchel was in my mind. He chose to tighten up, he chose to gamble essentially on defending the lead. Could he have gone more positive? Yes, of course he could, but we could have still lost. And also, you know, against this Argentina side, there was a risk either way, in fairness. If he'd brought on attackers and we still conceded, those same voices would be saying, he's made the wrong decision, you know. And that's how blame culture works in football. And it really kind of made my blood boil a little bit, you know. I watched the BBC, and you had in the BBC studio lineup, you had Chappers, Mark Chapman, you had Wayne Rooney, and I expected more from Wayne Rooney, to be fair, because I really like Wayne Rooney, but I'll come on to what he was saying in a minute. You had Joe Hart, and we had Micah Richards, and Micah Richards, that guy's got more sides to him than a 50p piece. I mean, Mika. But let's just have a look at their criticism. So Rooney essentially said that England got into a good position. They then sat back and invited pressure, and he felt the changes didn't help and cost the game. So he was very critical. Hart was ruthless on Tuchel. I mean, he basically framed the substitutions as a lack of belief in the team, comparing him to managers who shut up shop too early. And there were other ex-pros talking about panic, cowardly, and, you know, this is on Tuchel. So the ex-players, and again, I touched on this in my video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, this almost victim mentality that you see in some of these players. I really don't get it. And really, you know, these lads, all of these ex-footballers, they know how hard it is on the pitch. Yet their first instinct is to point at one man. And, you know, it's the same voices who were praising Tuchel as a defensive masterclass when we played Mexico. You know, and so it was the same approach. It was just a different result. And suddenly they're saying he's bottled it. So you can't have it both ways, guys. And so for me, that tells you more about the pundits than about Tuchel. You know, it's easy, it's lazy, and it lets everybody else off the hook. So if we look at what Tuchel said after the post-match interview, he said that England became too passive after the goal. That's a fact. We all saw it. They were conceding too many crosses and chances, and this is even before there was any changes to the structure, before there was any substitutions brought on. And his thinking: move to a back five, close the gaps, be stronger in the air, because Argentina were winning everything in the box. But crucially, he accepted responsibility, and he said something along the lines of, the responsibility is on the coach. If it doesn't go well, it's easy to say it was wrong. And to me, that's a manager owning his decision, okay? And that's what we want. We want honesty, we want accountability, and that's what that looks like. But in football, we don't ask the same from the players. We let them hide behind tactics, and the media direct all of their venom towards one man, and typically that's the manager. So the bottom line is, England lost, Argentina won. They were the better side on the night. Tuchel made decisions that didn't work. You know, we can't argue with that. But the players, the mentality, the performance, all of that has to be part of the conversation here. This isn't just about Tuchel's strategy. And I just want to draw a quick example from boxing just to close out this video, because I think it's a very interesting comparison. Dave Allen, when he fought Filip Hrgović in Doncaster, you know, Allen's playing in his hometown. It's a huge event for him. It's an incredible atmosphere. It's a big opportunity. And, you know, Hrgović starts to put a beating on him. And in the third round, Dave Allen's coach, Jamie Moore, he throws in the towel. And, you know, in the moment, you know, Allen's a fighter. He wanted to carry on. And he was gutted. He was disappointed, and you know, he was questioning the timing like any fighter would. And he actually had a word with his trainer about this, Jamie Moore. I mean, I don't think it should have been stopped, to be perfectly honest, but not to digress. But you know, afterwards, Dave Allen said that Hrgović was simply too good for him that night. No excuses. It was just honesty. He was talking about different levels. Yeah, he was saying that Hrgovic's on a different level. That's honesty. And then on his coach, Jamie Moore, who he sees like a big brother, he says he loves him to bits. And his attitude is, if Jamie says it's time to stop, then it's time to stop. If Jamie thinks it's the right decision, then it's the right decision. Thank you for looking after me. And he talks about Jamie and Nigel Travis being with him through everything. He says he trusts them, and that if they say enough's enough, enough's enough. And he says that they'll move forward together. That's respect. That's trust. That's a fighter understanding his corner is trying to protect him, even when it hurts his pride. Now imagine if football worked like that. Imagine Kane, Bellingham, the England lads coming out and saying, we love our coach. We trust his decisions, even when they don't come off. Argentina was better than us on the night. Instead, we've got a culture where the manager is the lightning rod, the pundits sharpen the knives, and the players rarely take equal responsibility. So for me, in closing, Argentina were better. England lost. Argentina won. They deserved it. Tuchel made a gamble that didn't pay off, but he was trying to protect his team that were just literally being overrun by a side that finishes strong. They've got a record of finishing strong. And, you know, he did what he did. And from a, you know, it's a little bit going back to boxing again. You might disagree with the tactics, but you don't disrespect the corner and pretend the opponent wasn't the superior fighter. You know, what I love about boxers, you know, they'll even go and they'll lift their opponent's hand up in not always, but certainly, you know, a lot of the time they've earned that respect. You know, so from a Kirk's Corner point of view, you know, respect Argentina, share the responsibility and stop pretending this is all on one man. We rebuild, we learn, and we come back to fight another day. That's all I've got to say, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you genuinely think this is all on Tuchel, or are we dodging the truth about where England are at? Give us a like, give us a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one, guys. Take care.